Do you want to be like one of these sexual icons that change the world through code? Well, I don't think I can help you with that, but what I can hopefully do is help you determine a way to change your career from whatever you're doing now to coding. Now, if you're a college student or high school, not all of these steps are going to apply to you, though some of them will. And I still do recommend computer science if you decide to study in college. However, that's not an option for everyone, and I don't think it's a prerequisite to get into the software engineering industry. So let's set some expectations. First of all, most fields do want a degree. If you're working in something like machine learning or most back-end jobs, you're probably going to need to study computer science or transition to them once you've already gotten a job and proven yourself. I also want to note that computer science is different than software engineering. Computer science will help you understand programming best practices, but they are technically different. Computer science isn't a prerequisite to learning how to code. However, to be a great coder, you probably need to understand certain computer science principles, which is why it's still a great degree to study. It just doesn't mean that you can't get into the software engineering industry without it. Now, I do want to note also that what I'm presenting here isn't some magical bullshit shortcut. You still have to put a lot of work in, and this isn't one of those, these are the things they don't want you to know. I'm just simply providing some extra context as someone who also got into the industry in a slightly unorthodox way. So, what do I recommend? Well, the front end. And I recommend this for a few reasons. First of all, getting a job in front end is probably the easiest starting point. It has the lowest threshold for baseline knowledge that you need to have. Now, that doesn't mean it's easy, and it doesn't mean you don't have to learn as much in the end to be a great front-end developer. It just means that if you want to do back-end work, generally you're going to have studied computer science and have a firm understanding of a lot of different principles. While on the front end, you can learn a lot of things as you develop yourself as a coder. A lot of junior level front-end engineering jobs aren't going to require you to know complex data structures and algorithms, just because when it comes to high efficiency coding, when it comes to heavy process loads and needing that kind of performance, that's going to be handled on the back end. Now, these kind of things are going to help a front-end engineer, especially when you get into more complex views. YouTube isn't just using simple jQuery to handle all of the complexities of their front end. And so you're not going to get a job at Google just knowing how to do simple DOM manipulation. You're going to need to learn a lot of these principles. You just don't necessarily need to know everything to start a front-end job. So, what are the steps? The first thing you need to do is get through that beginner stage. You can do this through YouTube videos, online courses, both free and paid. But whatever you do, don't just watch. Don't even just watch and take notes. Follow along. Do what they're doing, change things up, break things, work alongside, and play with the code. Why is this? As soon as you need to build something and not just copy code, you run into all sorts of problems, and learning how to solve those problems is probably 95% of coding in practice. When you see things on a site that you think are kind of cool, especially if you don't know how to do them, try and build them. Whether it's a certain style that you might not know how to do in CSS, or it's a cool functionality in a search bar, challenging yourself to replicate things like that are going to prepare you for the kind of work you might have in a junior level job. Now, once you've got to the point where you're comfortable building simple applications, it's time to start building your portfolio. It means you're no longer just doing random things to learn, but taking on specific projects that are going to help you land that first job. This means projects both to show off your JavaScript as well as your styling. Now, I do want to note, you don't have to be a designer. You can build things you found on Dribbble. You can just Google cool web page designs and copy those. Now, this doesn't mean you should say, oh, I just thought this up. You should always reference what you're taking, give credit where credit's due. But a lot of times in work, they're going to give you mockups that you're responsible for building out. And so all you're doing is showing that you can handle that. What I recommend is having several projects that show that you know what you're doing with JavaScript, as well as some that show that you know how to copy a mockup, and at least one or two that show both. You want to have a best project that you can show to a future employer to hopefully impress them. Now, for this, I would say GitHub's your friend. Companies probably won't look at your GitHub, but it's still a good thing to have. I also want to note that you're going to make a lot of mistakes. It might sound easy. Okay, just have 3 good JavaScript projects, 3 styling, and 3 of a mix. It's not that simple. You're going to start things, run into problems, it's going to suck, and you're going to quit, and you are going to delete that project. But the key is don't give up. Figure out where you went wrong, and try and avoid those mistakes. Next, pour yourself out. I didn't really have a good picture for this, so I figured who doesn't like looking at puppies? But what I mean is work. Build things for friends, for family of friends, and friends of family. Even if you can't get paid for it, you're getting references. You're showing that you can take someone's idea, think of a solution, and actually implement that solution. Now, there's kind of this bullshit axiom that you should know your worth and never work for free. And that's great on paper. And if you can get paid, it's better to get paid than not get paid. But that's just not always a reality. But in the end, what's important is getting a reference. Now, I will admit, it's not required to have all of these references of people you've worked for, but it does help. Being able to give links to actual sites that are live that future employers can go to is just going to give you a leg up on anyone else that doesn't have something to link to. Now, when you're finally ready, and hopefully before you're even ready, you should start applying for jobs. The main documents you need for this are your resume and cover letter. What I generally recommend for both of these is 1 page, just on the front side. For the resume, you can give your education, give experience, and list all of the technologies you've worked with, even if it means you only spent a week learning React from some videos, copying what they were doing. As long as you don't lie, you're allowed to say, beginner React. And if they ask you about it, again, don't lie. Just let them know, and you're already ahead of someone who just hasn't touched it. When it comes to the cover letter, I recommend having a general template, 5 paragraphs long. First, where you introduce yourself, the middle 3 paragraphs talking about yourself, and a final paragraph summarizing the key things that they should know about you and saying you look forward to talking more about the position soon. I think it's important to treat it like a template. You should always specify the job in the first paragraph, saying you look forward to talking with whatever the company is. But when it comes down to it, this shouldn't be something that takes an hour long to change for every job you're looking for. That's just not practical. Why? Because I think it's important to apply everywhere. Some would say, no, you want to focus hard on each job you apply for. But I think especially in the way job searches are done nowadays, you're better off peppering the internet with your applications, even if you're underqualified. As long as you don't lie, you're not being unethical. A lot of times, the people hiring for the jobs aren't even on the tech team. They'll put that they're looking for a React developer or Vue or Angular, and their team's working on jQuery. Every single job I've ever gotten through applying online, the requirements that they've looked for have had very little to do with the specific workflow that I had once I started working there. What I recommend is going on Indeed.com, typing in a few keywords, looking for a junior front-end developer or engineer, and just start applying like crazy. And this doesn't mean send out 50 applications and you're done. No. Once you've started your job search, I would make a weekly habit of searching again, either the same or even some new keywords, and just keep applying. In my experience, it very rarely takes more than a month to get a number of interviews and eventually land a job. I'll also note that you should take interviews even if you don't want the job. Why? Because it's good experience. It'll be good practice for you to work on articulating what you've done, what you want to continue working on, and where you see yourself in 5 or 10 years. Being able to communicate is always an advantage, especially in the hiring process. Now, I put this in at number 5, but I want to note that it's extremely optional. I didn't use a bootcamp, but I do know people who did. It's not for everyone, and it may only work for some people's financial positions. A lot of times it can require quitting your current job and investing your next 3 months in learning, paying to learn. Before you do this, you want to make sure that you research their job placement and see if you can talk to people who have gone through the program. I put this on here because, for example, it worked for my brother. He went to, I think it was a 10 or 12 week program, and he got a job before he even left. Now, a lot of times, you're not going to get high paying jobs leaving these, so it's not something that you should just expect. But once you're in, you're in. From there, you're able to continue to learn, move up, and especially in the tech industry, salary goes up quickly. So what are some final thoughts? Well, if you haven't caught on yet, companies do not know what they want. So as long as you're honest, you're okay. You'll learn so much at your first job, and imposter syndrome is real. You will always fight the feeling that you're a fraud and not worth what they're paying you. But truth be told, that's normal, even for developers 15 years into the industry. And like I said before, once you're in, you're in. Now, that doesn't mean work 6 weeks, get bored of it, and quit, find a different job. I think it's good advice to put in a year at whatever company you're working at. It takes time on their part to train you, which they're paying for and not getting anything out of right away. So make sure that you don't leave them hanging. Even if you don't love the job, you're going to learn a lot in that time, so it'll still be worth it. And as I've hinted at, you need to keep learning and keep honing your craft. Maybe your goal is to be a game developer, or you want to be a full stack developer. Well, you don't get there just by putting a certain amount of time in as a front-end developer. No, you get there by treating your job seriously. If you keep learning every month, every week, something new, and try and pick up on the things that maybe some of the back-end engineers are doing, pretty soon they're going to ask you to take care of a small back-end story that deals with getting some information from the back end to the front end. All of a sudden, you struggle with that, but then you get it done, and sooner or later you're taking on more and more. Maybe within a year of that, you find yourself moving towards the back end. I'm not saying that everyone should be a front-end engineer, but I do think by taking a path like this and getting into the industry, it opens up a wide array of possibilities. Great. So I hope you found this useful. If you did, feel free to drop a like, comment, or subscribe to get more videos like this. And if you've been working on your JavaScript and think you're getting pretty close to getting that first job, feel free to check out my intermediate JavaScript tutorial series that I've started working on. I'll throw a link in the description and see if I can throw a card up on the screen. I hope you guys found this useful and hope to see you again. Thanks.